Children will be taught to love America. Children will be taught to be patriots. Children will be taught civic values for schools that want federal taxpayer funding. So as we close the Department of Education and we provide funding to states, we are going to make sure that these funds are not being used to promote communist ideology. For any nation to be successful, it cannot teach its children to hate themselves and to hate their country. So these are a few of the areas in which President Trump has fought the cancerous, communist, woke culture.
A Jewish man is a white supremacist? Well, yeah.
Speechwriter and architect of the administration's anti-immigration policies, Stephen Miller, sent at least 900 emails to editors at the far-right news site Breitbart between 2015 and 2016. Miller shared links from white nationalist sites. He plugged The Camp of the Saints, a story about the Great Replacement myth. He pitched a story about how Amazon pulled Confederate merchandise down but still sold, quote, commie flags in the wake of the Charleston church shooting, in which 9 black churchgoers were murdered by a white supremacist. Miller wrote, quote, "Have you thought about going to Amazon and finding the commie flags and then doing a story on that? It's not a coincidence that in the midst of pushing the U.S.-ending trade deal, we're seeing a historic artifact of real America be demonized and destroyed," unquote. Miller also expressed support for the same immigration policies that Hitler backed.
By 14, Miller was a cultural warrior with a love for Star Trek. A friend and fellow Trekkie said Miller called him to break off their friendship. "I can't be your friend anymore because you are Latino," he said. Miller continued his war against minorities throughout high school. He wrote columns attacking Hispanic students for not speaking English.
Am I the only one who is sick and tired of being told to pick up my trash? And we have plenty of janitors who are paid to do it for us.
And his name is Stephen Miller. Miller promoted white nationalist literature, pushed racist immigration stories, and obsessed over the loss of Confederate symbols after a murderous rampage per uncovered emails. He also pushed the debunked far-right talking point of white people are being replaced. This would originate in neo-Nazi circles. The Southern Poverty Law Center printed more than 80% of those emails that they reviewed from Miller were centered on race or immigration. Remember Richard Spencer, the Nazi who got punched in the face in a video that went viral? One of the free thought leaders who not only took part but celebrated in the Unite the Right rally in Charlottesville, Virginia, who we saw an activist named Heather Heyer get killed by a white supremacist. Well, he and Miller were pals at Duke University's conservative union. Spencer would later tell Mother Jones, "I knew him very well when I was at Duke, but I'm kind of glad no one's talked about this because I don't want to harm Trump." That was prior to the 2016 election. Now, the mask has been off ever since.
The cartels are gone. The criminal migrants are gone. The gangs are gone. America is for Americans and Americans only.
As it's been well reported, Miller likely borrowed this phrase from Hitler himself, who quipped, "Germany for the Germans, foreigners out." What strikes me is his most recent press conference that he held.
So these are a few of the areas in which President Trump has fought the cancerous, communist, woke culture that was destroying this country, where we were led to believe that men were women, that women were men, that racial discrimination was good, that merit was bad, and that safety and physical security mattered less than the feelings of liberal ideologues.
Because it reminds me of the following. A New York Times piece in 2017 noted Miller jumped, uninvited, into the final stretch of a girls' track meet, apparently intent on proving his athletic supremacy over the opposite sex. The White House at the time made sure to mention it was a girls' team from a different institution. But in all seriousness, what sort of curriculum do they envision for America? You know, less woke, less communist ideologies. What do they have in mind exactly? Popular Information printed the following. Beginning in the 2025-26 school year, thousands of high school students in the state of Oklahoma will be required to learn about President Donald Trump's debunked claims that the 2020 election was tainted by fraud. The lesson will not be part of a course on conspiracy theories, they write, but an official component of the new social studies curriculum created by Oklahoma Superintendent of Public Instruction instruction, Ryan Walters, of course, a Republican. So let me just say, I think there are a few things at play here. The first is we have seen over time, starting with the Reagan administration, how they wanted to not have people that were going to college have it for free. And that is what launched these far-right attacks on higher education, because they saw the protests that were happening surrounding Vietnam, and they wanted to put an end to any sort of dissent. And with that, it accelerated through Reagan up until present day, where they want to continue these attacks, and they use certain people to leverage their positions. For example, a Charlie Kirk who goes to Turning Point USA, or who goes to Texas A&M for Turning Point USA, will show up in Aggie Land, will show up on different campuses, and he will say the problem is this university has gone woke. This university is a Marxist communist hotbed of political activism. And with that, what they try and do is manufacture consent through their own electorate to say, this is a problem. This is why there are so many trans people when that's wrong. This is why there's so many people in the LGBTQ plus community when that is wrong. What they want to do is dumb down the electorate, because then it is much easier to therefore manufacture more consent. A dumbed down society only favors one side. Donald Trump even said it at one point when he won the 2016 election. I won with highly educated. I won with poorly educated. I love the poorly educated. There is a reason why they are doing this over and over again. It is because they want to get rid of the Department of Education so they can control the federal funding with how exactly they're going to use those funds, because they want states to fall in line. That is what this comes down to. This whole thing about hating your country, no one hates the country. What they view, which is rightful critique, protected under the Constitution, they view that as a threat. They view that as they have said, the enemy from within. Because Hitler did the same thing when he went after professors, he went after doctors, he went after university, because the facts don't agree with their methodology. That is the underlying point of all of this. The reason that they go after these certain institutions, particular institutions, may I say, is because the institutions are going to say, no, this is wrong, or actually fact checking, Stephen Miller is wrong. But they will use these key words, these buzzwords, to signal to the MAGA base, oh, Marxists, communists, leftists, they view those as the enemy from within. So may I just say, scary times. Scary, scary, scary times. I've seen some people on Twitter say that they're going to homeschool their kids. I honestly don't know. I don't know what is going to happen. You got to laugh from crying. These are painful, strenuous, terrifying times to know that this administration is trying to control and going to implement a policy that the Ryan Walterses of the world will institute, which is, oh yeah, the 2020 election was actually stolen. And what they're going to do is probably, like Walters did, strike a deal with Donald Trump to put forth the Trump Bible in those schools as well. Hey, I appreciate you watching. Now, if you can, please do become a channel member by going to youtube.com/TYT Sports and clicking the join button. If that's too much for you, you can just go to tyt.com/join to become a member. It helps all of us out here at the Young Turks and keeps our network afloat. In addition, you could follow me on my socials on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. Appreciate the love. Have a great day.